Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
Welcome to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I have one question for you. What would you do if fear didn't exist? I guess it's kind of a broad question, but what are your dreams? What would you do if you literally did not have a fear of absolutely anything? If fear was not a feeling, it was not an emotion, it was not apparent in our lives, what are the things that you would do with your life? This I could think of, personally, I could think of quite a few things, that I would do with my life. And I bet you when I asked you that question, or when you clicked on this episode, something popped up into your mind instantly. Like, what are you most scared of? What are you holding back from? Maybe it's going after your career. You want to take a trip. Whatever it is, what decisions would you be making if fear was not a factor? If fear was not apparent in your life, it had, literally you were not scared of anything. Where would you be living? What job would you have? What exactly would your life look like if you had no limitations that way? No fear, you weren't scared, you could just go after whatever you wanted. And I bet you your answer is, likely your most pure, most true, authentic, unedited self. What are you desperate to be doing, but you're just too scared to do because your fear is holding you back? So today I want to talk to you about living life fearlessly, what you would do if fear didn't exist, and how important it is to have that mindset, a healthy mindset if fear didn't exist, because we should be living our life to the fullest to get, absolutely every ounce of joy and happiness we can out of everything that we do and out of the life we're living. Life is a journey. It is a process. It's not an event. And I think that's so important to not look at life as an event. We have to look at life as a journey, as a process, as this continual realm of growth. And, we're constantly learning about, our world and ourselves and so many different things. And we have all these emotions and things going on in our head. And, sometimes we get held back for what we truly want, what's truly going to make us happy because of fear. And that could be, fear of failure. Fear of not being enough, fear of the actual thing. I'm not saying, if you want to jump off, go bungee jumping or something, that's cool. You're scared of heights maybe or something. You got to face your fear. I'm talking more of your life choices, your decisions that you would be making, your career, your relationships, your family, how would you make yourself the happiest person alive for you? How would you be living your life to the fullest? I don't think that we should be going through our life, resisting things that would make us happy, because we're scared. And everyone gets scared. Everybody has fears. Fear does exist. But I want to talk to you about, what would you do if fear didn't exist, and how much that could enhance your life. And then hopefully after this episode, you might get a little bit new perspective. Maybe you're going to go out and face your fears, go after what you truly want, so that you're living your life to the absolute fullest. I just think it's so important. So specifically ask yourself, what would you do if fear didn't exist? If you had absolutely no limitations. Like I said, something probably popped up in your mind. Maybe one thing, maybe 5 things, maybe 100 things popped up in your mind. Oh, I would be doing this for sure. I could be here. What's my dream job? What's my, my dream, basically? Like, what do you most desire in life that would make you the happiest person alive? And so why aren't you doing that? You're probably scared of something. You might have other limitations of other aspects in life, but why don't you just go after what you want? Most of the time we are scared of failing. We are scared of falling behind, not being good enough, being judged, ridiculed, criticized for our life choices. But what kind of choices would you make if you didn't have to be scared about any of that? What kind of decisions would you make? What kind of questions would you answer? Where would you be? Like, I think it's just such a cool thing to kind of think about, to really pinpoint the things, that have resisted you from life, from enjoying life to the fullest because of fear. It could be fear of anything, right? And, it's not just like your fear of spiders. I mean, like, literally going after your dream job, or maybe you're really into, like, posting, like, you want to do, like, YouTube or something like that, but that's scary to you, because you're scared of being judged, you're scared of not being good enough, and whatever the case is. But, like, if those things truly make you happy, why aren't we doing it? And it's just because fear is so apparent in our every single day life. But really, how much more enhanced would your quality of life be? I bet you it would be enhanced by so much. You could be living so happily and healthy, and you could have, what you wanted if just fear didn't get in the way. Personally, to me, what living, fearlessly would look like, it would allow me to be my most authentic self. It would allow me to be my complete, unedited self 100% of the time, which is honestly exciting to even talk about. And that shows me how much I really want to do that, how much I really want to put myself out there. So it's like, why don't you live the life the way that you dream of it? Why don't we push past those fears if we truly know it would make us happier? But fear's a roadblock, in a lot of our journeys. We're going down the road, we're cruising through, and then fear jumps in and it stops us. We can't go through it sometimes. We can't go around it. With fear, we have to face it head on 99% of the time. And I think that's the scariest part of it all, is that, there is no loophole. There is no way around it. Most of the time, we have to dive deep in to overcome it. Everyone says, face your fears, like, just face it. And, like, so cliche, but, like, it's true. And that's what's so scary about our fears, I think, is, it's not even just the initial fear. It's, like, the fact, like, wow, what if I actually had to face that? What if I actually had to do that? What if I had to jump fully in and do it? We are conditioned to be careful, to be scared, to avoid, run, hide. That is just how we work. There is parts in our brain and our bodies that are designed to help protect us. We have those instincts to protect us. And we have to find that line, between, facing our fears and being held back, and, the protection and, like, the actual, like, this can't hurt me. Like, I just need to go for it. It's actually going to benefit. It's actually going to enhance my life more. So often we can, fear pulls us away from the experience of life, the experience of being vulnerable and open. And vulnerability, I think, is one of the scariest things to be. Your most authentic, vulnerable, lay yourself out, like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do, I'm going to go after this, nothing's getting in my way. And that's scary, to be open and honest and vulnerable in front of the world, in front of other people, even just in front of yourself, to sometimes come to terms with admitting what you want to do. I really want to quit my 9-to-5 job, and I want to go move to a different place and pursue something, like, maybe you want to quit your 9-to-5 job and, like, be a famous basketball player. I don't know. Like, whatever it is, there's always something that kind of holds us back. And even if it might not seem like fear has a role played in it, that it's a factor that why we're being held back and holding ourselves back. And we're just conditioned to be careful, to be cautious. And it's definitely good to be cautious. It's definitely good, to, be curious about something, but it doesn't mean that we need to avoid it or run away from it or settle for anything less because we're scared. It's normal to be scared. It's normal to have fears. It's normal to want to run away. But we need to teach ourselves to kind of embrace that. And I'm going to dive more into, embracing our fears and what we kind of got to do to live our life to the fullest, to live life fearlessly. But right now, it is time for a break. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to jump right in to why you should be living your life fearlessly and how exactly you can do it. So stay tuned. Okay, so if you are anything like me, you're going to have absolutely no idea where to even begin when it comes up with creating the best quality logo for your company. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, startup, small business, it's so crucial to have that perfect creative design to represent what you're doing. So this is where Design Crowd comes in and saves you. Design Crowd is a website that allows you to outsource over 750,000 designers from all over the world. You get to use their creative minds to come up with the perfect design for your company and what you're doing. It is such a cool website, and since you are a Life and Happiness listener, you can actually receive up to $150 off your design project. All you have to do is go to designcrowd/lifeandhappiness, or you can use the promo code lifeandhappiness. Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast. So we're talking about living life fearlessly. And that's exactly, I think, what we should all be doing. Being our most unedited, authentic self and, creating the life that we want, creating the life that we've always dreamt of. But how do we do that? Because fear is always going to be a roadblock. It's always going to be something that's in our way. It's going to be something that we run into during our journey called life. And it's really difficult to overcome. Like I said before, we can't always just go around it or, make an excuse, even though we try to avoid and run and hide away. We got to learn to just be careful and cautious, but go after what's going to make us the happiest. So, imagine your life like exactly what it would be like if you had no fears. If you took all the risk without any hesitation. Something pops into your head, like I've mentioned probably, and you have something in your mind that kind of makes you happy. And, imagining what your life could look like if you just said goodbye to all your fears, it gives you this feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, wow. Like, my life would be amazing. I would be so happy. And we have to take all of that into consideration and understand, we have to tackle life at full force sometimes and really go after what we want, because life is short. Life is so, so short. And, sometimes we need to be reminded that we got to take risks, even though we're scared, and if we do fail, if we do fall, we have to appreciate those as times for growth. Often, though, we find that we make excuses for ourselves. You haven't tackled the things in your life because of something, whether they are small or big excuses. I find, financial situations always an excuse. oh, I could go on that, like, dream trip I've been, like, dreaming of my whole life around Europe, but, like, financially it's not smart if I do, or I shouldn't do it, or, you know, we always find a way to try to justify to ourselves why we aren't living fearlessly. Oh, I shouldn't do that, it's not the right time, you know, like, it's all about, I feel like all of our excuses are usually, you know, timing, financial, it's just not, oh, no, like, next year I'll do that, yeah, I'll save more, next year, you know. We're always making, like, an excuse for why we aren't doing the things that make us the happiest, and I think that is, like, the biggest problem that we have, you know. We're scared of living fearlessly, and so we just make excuses to try to make ourselves feel better for not actually living life to the fullest. Most of the time, we're literally not participating in life experiences, you know, things that we're passionate about, things that make us happy, things that we're driven to or drawn to, you know, we don't experience those things. We don't let ourselves experience those things because we're living in the spirit of fear. And then we, you know, from a result of that, you know, we're making excuses to try to make ourselves feel better. But our fear pushes us back into our shell. Instead of being free and putting ourselves out there, fear is actually closing ourselves off to our full potential. You know, it's blocking us from our full potential. We're operating in this, like, fearful state of mind, and it's limiting ourselves and the others around us from living the life that we want, you know, living the life that we honestly dream of. But fear is a perception. That's it. Fear is a perception. Think about it. There's no two people that have the same idea of fear. We all perceive fear. We apply fear to different aspects of our lives, and we apply it in different aspects and handle it differently. It's all different. You know, we're all scared of different things. You know, sometimes they're like, well, I'm scared of spiders. Yeah, so am I. But we're perceiving that fear differently. We have a different reason why we're scared of spiders. It's never going to be the same for two people, really. We're never going to experience fear the same as someone else because we're all different. We're all wired differently. We all, you know, we're all affected by things differently. That's why fear is a perception. It's all perceived. You know, so everyone gives fear a different meaning. It's a different definition. And it's because we all have our own perception of what fear is. So then there's really nothing to fear but the meaning that we give fear. Does that make sense? There's no universal fears. You know, there's only universal fear topics. Fear of failure. Fear of abandonment. Fear of success. Like I said, fear of spiders. Like, there's all these different things, but we all experience those fears differently based on our perceptions, our beliefs, and our experiences. So if we want to change our behavior and change our mindset, we need to change our perception so that, because fear is just a perception. If you no longer, you know, want to be terrified of spiders, you have to perceive them differently. If you no longer want to be in fear of failure, you have to perceive failure differently. If you look at failure as an exciting, like, thing to grow off of, a new opportunity to learn and grow, then that's not scary. There's nothing scary about, you know, enhancing your life by growing and learning about yourself. But if you look at failure as this terrible thing, of course you're going to be scared of it. So we have to change our perception. Fear is an illusion. Fear is exactly what you make out of it because it's all in your head. It's your inner voice telling you things and veering you off in different directions than the reality because of the way that you're perceiving it. So fear can originate in our desire to really control the future. You know, it's our need for assurance and safety, protection, you know, security. We hold ourselves off because we're scared of getting hurt in some sort of form, right? We're scared of, like, going after a career job because what if we fail? What if we don't get it? What if we put ourselves out there and we get laughed at, we get judged, ridiculed? Like, that's scary, but it's the way that we're perceiving it. So we can't control everything in our lives. We can't control the outcome. But what we can control is the way that we think about things, the way that we perceive things. There's definitely a difference between fear and being logical, like logically careful and like cautious or curious. And that's when we have to find that balance. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. And that's why we have to live for today. And we have to live fearlessly. And that's terrifying itself. If you perceive it that way, if you perceive living fearlessly as scary, that's all your perception though, right? And so we have to learn to change our perception and change the way that we look at things so that, we don't have to be scared. The thoughts in our head it's not who we are, but the experiences and our beliefs, that's based on something more. And when you experience things and you're growing as a human and you go through life itself, well, that's starting to shape you who you are, and it's starting to shape your beliefs and your perceptions. And that's because of our actions and our experiences. But we can perceive our experiences in all different types of ways. That's why, fear is never the same for two people, because, going bungee jumping could be absolutely terrifying for someone and not terrifying for the other. Right? We're all different. It's because of the way we perceive it. Going after our dream career, moving to a new city by yourself, that can be very terrifying for others. Whereas some people think it's exciting and thrilling, and they love that feeling of moving to a new city and going after the career and risking it all, it's the way that we perceive things. And so if we are perceiving fear in this, terrible way, if we're perceiving failure or abandonment or things like that, it's hard to look at it in a different way. It's hard to change our perception, but we need to practice in changing our perception of our fears, or else we're never going to be, able to get over it. So yes, I do agree, you just got to go after your fears, but go after them, face them in a way of changing your perception. You don't have to just, go full force and just tackle your fear. Sometimes it does work for some people, but others it doesn't. And if it does work for some people, it's probably because your perception of that thing is changing because you actually experienced it. The thing with our fears, we don't actually usually experience them because we're too scared to do them. But once you face your fear and all of a sudden you realize, oh, it's not that bad, your perception changes. That's why fear is literally a perception. It is an illusion. So we have to change our perception so that we can change our fears and we can go after life the way that we want. It's time, though, for another break. Don't go anywhere, because I'm going to give you, some more information on key elements to living fearlessly, what cancels out fear, and how you can just tackle living your life fearlessly.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast. So what cancels out fear? One word: faith. Faith cancels out fear. Faith that everything is happening for a reason. You must believe in yourself and believe in life's events. You must have trust. You must be trusting to the universe that everything is being aligned and happening in your life for the right reason. And if we can trust and we can have faith, then we can also change our perceptions on things. If you have faith, it's stronger than your perception of fear. You will not experience fear if you have full faith in yourself, in life, the universe, everything around you. But if you're focused on your fears, you will feel fear. So focus on faith, gratitude, joy. By focusing on gratitude and joy and faith and having those three things in your mind specifically, you're taking yourself out of the fearful mindset and you're just accepting. You're really taking in, this is what's supposed to happen. Everything's happening for a reason, and I have faith in it. I have faith in myself for being strong, and you got to believe in yourself. So a key element to living fearlessly is trusting that everything in life, every outcome, every obstacle, everything is happening the exact way it's supposed to. Life is a process. It's not an event. So embrace your fears. That's another key element to living fearlessly, is just embracing them. You can't avoid them. We can't go around the roadblock every single time. It doesn't work like that. And if you get around once, you're going to run into it again and again and again. You have to deal with it. You have to change your perception on fear. And it's so, so important. So embrace and then take action. Sit with your fear in your mind. Think about it for a little bit, about how you're feeling. You might be able to rationalize these thoughts easier than you even think by just sitting there and really rationalizing and thinking about your fear. You're able to rationalize it sometimes by literally just sitting there. You might not even have to tackle it full force, of course, depending on what it is or who you are. But if you can just, embrace it, sit with it, how are you going to feel it? Then you can make an action plan and you can take action. When we embrace vulnerability, it's a terrifying thing to accept, but if we embrace the vulnerability, we can become our most authentic self. Vulnerability, I will admit, that is one of my fears. And so I need to accept that being vulnerable is going to give me the life that I want to, because I want to be my most authentic, unedited self in everything that I do. So I have to embrace vulnerability to overcome that. So look at it this way. Anxiety and fear is actually wisdom trapped inside of you. I know that sounds weird, but if you're accepting your fear and anxiety as an opportunity to learn, that is actually wisdom locked up inside of you. There is a lot of knowledge in our fears. They can teach us so much. So ask yourself, what can you learn from your fears and your anxieties? What could you learn if you acknowledge them and face them? I bet you 11 times out of 10, the things that you're going to come up with are going to outweigh your fears, if I face my fears, if I embrace them, if I change my perception and really, really go after it, that knowledge that you're going to gain from doing exactly that is so much more beneficial to your life than just avoiding it and hiding away. We tend to avoid, run away, hide because we don't want to embrace anything. We don't want to face it. And it's scary. And that's why, right? That's why they're called fears. They're scary. But if we can change our perception, and I think changing your perception, the first thing that you need to do is embrace it. Kind of dissect it a little bit. Okay, so how am I really feeling about this? Is this rational? Is it irrational? You really got to kind of slow down and dissect it and think about it, embrace it. And then you can make an action plan to change your perception on it, because changing your perception is not the easiest thing to do. You can't just look at something differently with a snap of your fingers, unfortunately. That's just not how you do it. But once you embrace it and you accept it and you can create that action plan, once you have that and you know what you're going to do, how you're going to tackle it, you're going to break it down. You'll feel at ease having it broken down into baby steps. And then by breaking it down into easy steps, every small goal is actually a huge, celebration in reality, because embracing that and tackling that small goal, it does so much for the benefit of our lives, even more, than we really recognize or see. So that's why we need to keep putting ourselves out there. And by out there, I mean like going out there and facing our fears, changing our perception on things so that we can live life to the absolute fullest. But changing your perception and tackling your fears is not an easy thing to do. Because why would you want to live a life where you're not yourself? Fear holds us back from being ourselves, from being vulnerable, and vulnerable itself is scary. Like I said, that is one of my fears, is being vulnerable. But it's something that I know that I need to embrace because it's going to enhance my life. And we want to live a happy and healthy life all the time, right? We want to be ourselves too, and we want to be happy being ourselves. So I think really thinking about all the knowledge and growth that you can gain from embracing your fears and changing your perception and going after what you want, that knowledge and growth is gonna outweigh, all that anxiety, all that, the things that kind of take you back and hold you back. I really think the amount of things you're going to learn about yourself, the places that you can grow to, how happy you're going to be in the long run is definitely going to, outweigh those butterflies in your stomach, that anxiety that you feel, the overthinking. It's all going to be worth it in the end, but we have to put ourselves in that mindset, which is, of course, easier said than done. But if we don't put ourselves out there, our true selves, then we aren't living life to the fullest. Every single day we're growing, we're learning about ourselves. But if we stay in our shell and we avoid things that kind of give us a little bit of anxiety and fear, then, when you are feeling vulnerable or in fear, you're really just resisting life's joy, because you're not embracing life to the fullest and you're not experiencing. But remember, too, when you are feeling vulnerable or you are scared, you're thinking about your fears, that means you care. You care about what's going on in your life and how you're feeling and how things affect you. And that isn't a bad thing. Caring about those things deeply, caring about your quality of life, that's important, and it's healthy to be caring so much. But you can't let that fear hold you back from living the life that you want. So try to recognize how much you really do care about the situation, and I think that can really help you get out of that fearful mindset. Obviously, you're feeling this way for a reason, so you got to accept that, and this can make you have, a more clear mind on what you need to do about it to be okay with the situation. You got to be aware, you got to be honest, be okay with it, make an action plan, and then you got to jump. Right? That's so easy. Yeah, just jump for it. But seriously, what's the worst thing that could happen to you? And now what's the best thing that could happen to you? I bet it outweighs what your idea of the worst case scenario is. I bet you every single time what the best thing could happen to you is gonna outweigh what the worst case scenario is in your mind. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. And that's exactly why we have to live for today and why we have to live fearlessly. I have a little quote for you. If you are your authentic self, then you have no competition. And I love that because it's so true. If you can just be authentic and you can be yourself and you can be vulnerable, there's nothing to compete to. There's no judgment to be scared of. There's nothing to hold yourself back because there is no competition, because you're just being you. And that's going to make you the happiest. So be fearlessly authentic and bravely be you. I think it's so important to living that quality of life, living that happy and healthy life that you've always dreamt of. So you got to live fearlessly. Well, that is all the information that I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening to GSMC Life and Happiness podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. I had such an amazing time talking to you about living fearlessly. I thought of this subject because recently I've been trying to tackle some of my fears and change my perception. And I just think it's so important to, really think about our lives and how it would be like if fear did not exist. Because that's our most purest, authentic, unedited self, and that's the life that we want. So of course we should go after that. So thank you so much for listening. As always, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. I look forward to next time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness podcast.